Good morning, and here is this week's food for thought. Last week we talked about the importance of community, and this week I want to talk about something else that is really important for a Christian, and that's fellowship. You see, fellowship is an important aspect of the Christian faith, and we need to have those times to be able to fellowship with one another. We are relational beings. We believe in relationships and the importance of relationships. But I'll tell you something about fellowship, especially in my mind, especially in my opinion. When we gather together for fellowship, I believe it's important to have refreshments involved. Now, in one of my favorite stories in the Bible is a story about when Jesus fed 5,000 men with a simple gift from an unnamed boy of 5 barley loaves of bread and 2 fish. Now, this story in of itself is found in the Gospel of John, in John chapter 6, verses 1 through 14. And I encourage you to take time today to stop and read that story. And when you read this story, I've often seen several things that are applicable for each of our lives. Now, let me tell you what those things are. Number 1, Jesus cares enough for each of us, not only for our spiritual needs, but he also cares for our physical and our emotional needs as well. So if you're battling with something physically, if you're battling with something spiritually, or if you're battling with something emotionally, know that we have a God who cares for every single one of those needs. He cared that much for the people that had gathered to make sure that they were not only fed spiritually, but also had the opportunity that day to be fed physically. Second with it is faith means trusting God wholeheartedly to work out all the details. You see, Jesus Christ asked Philip, we need to feed these people. How much bread do we need? And Philip gave a response, my goodness, to feed all these people, it would take a year's wages just to be able to pay for the cost of the bread. But when we put in faith in God, for God to supply the needs, shall I use the Hebrew expression Jehovah Jireh, the Lord will provide, and our responsibility in fellowship is to come to him and recognize that God can not only feed thousands, but he can also move mountains in our lives. The third is God blesses a cheerful giver. That little boy that is willing to give everything he has, just 5 simple loaves of barley bread and 2 fish, his lunch. He was willing to give his lunch, and God used that for his glory. You see, nothing's too small that we can give to God. Nothing's too small, and there's no too small of a gift that we can dedicate to God. And God can't use that to further his kingdom. So whether you can only give a little, whether that be of your time, your talent, your treasure, be willing to give that. And don't downplay any gift that you have, because you see it may not be as much as you think it should be, or you can't afford something like someone else can. God can use big gifts and small gifts alike to further his kingdom and to proclaim his message. The next one, God can use our gifts to do insurmountably more than we could ever imagine. Sharing a lunch of 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, maybe splitting it in half, he may have been able to feed maybe 5 people. But you see, God can go above and beyond what we could even imagine. You see, just that little bit, just that willingness to give, God is able to use it in such a way beyond we could even begin to comprehend or even imagine. And the fifth, trust God to work out all the details. Are there things in life right now that have you stressed out? Are there things in life where you're not certain? Maybe you don't know where the next meal is going to come from. Maybe you don't know how you're going to be able to pay this or afford that. Maybe you don't know how God is going to handle a situation in your life. It's time for you to put trust in God. Trust God to work out the details. Trust God to know that he will handle everything according to his will and according to his plan. Our job is just to stop and to give thanks when he does. You see, thank God. What can we thank God for in this story today? Well, we can thank God for the nameless boy who was willing to give his small lunch to God to be a witness to the crowd and for generations to come, so that we can learn that even though every act of generosity, we can make an impact for the kingdom. Let's take that time and fellowship with each other. Let's take that time and make an impact as we're there encouraging one another. As iron sharpens iron, let us live that life and let us learn this simple lesson from a young boy, a young unnamed boy, who was willing to give all that he had and let God use it for great and mighty things. Until next time.